This is Chef Edward Lee. I would like to begin this digital story by mentioning a PBS TV series entitled Mind of a Chef, specifically an episode entitled Latitude, which reminds me of Nina Asher's article at the Interstices, Engaging Post-Colonial and Feminist Perspectives for Multicultural Education Pedagogy in the South. When Nina moved to Louisiana to teach, it reminded her of India, much like Kentucky reminded Chef Ed of Korea, because of the similar produce that grows both in Kentucky and Korea. The idea of latitude is another way of expressing the idea of borderlands, or interstices of the individual. This connection I made only reminds me of another more personal connection. I grew up in Colorado in the United States. Everywhere I went, I was an American. However, as a kid, every Sunday, my dad's side of the family had Sunday supper. From the moment I walked into my grandparents' house, the smell of Mexican rice, tacos, and enchiladas infiltrated my nose and my senses. Walking through their doorway, it felt like I was entering a new world. It felt like stepping into Mexico. My grandma would hug me and call me mija. It felt like home because I knew it was. I didn't realize it as a kid, but I carried these interstices with me everywhere I went. Everything about my grandma, my aunts, my uncles reminded me that I was a Mexican American. My grandma's food seemed to be the best reminder. Her house was steamy from all the cooking, and it was a warm smell. When my grandma died, it was a shock. She was the closest relative of mine to pass away at the time. I was a sophomore in high school. Now making this digital story, I realized that her passing was also a culture shock. I had lost my connection to my Mexican heritage, and I would have to, and eventually did, find new ways in which to remind myself. I always felt conflicted in my identity regarding my heritage, as every American does. When I was in elementary school, I was called a beigner. I knew why, because I hung out with the Mexican kids. But I was also confused, because I knew I looked white and most of my friends were white. It was a moment I will never forget. But another moment, years later, would rectify the confusion. When I was in high school, we had a Mexican exchange student stay with my family. One night at dinner, he said that the Europeans came to Mexico and ruined their lives. My mom, who knows a lot about Mexican and Latin American history, responded, "But all Mexicans are mestiza. Hispanic means that you have Spanish blood." It reminded me that all Mexicans are a mix of Native American and European heritage. Once again, I was confirmed internally of my interstices, because everyone has interstices. And beyond being a child of the borderlands, I was something much more special. I was and am Allison. So what does any of this have to do with the personal history and me being an educator? One of the articles we read this semester that really struck me was Maestras Dedicadas. And why is because I have a Mexican American aunt who just retired after a lifetime of teaching elementary school. Thus I realized I was related to and knew a Maestra Dedicada. It made me wonder if she was a participant in the Chicana movement in education, but she had never mentioned she was. She had never played that role in schools, but being in this program, I am now faced with the opportunity and challenge of playing the role of a Chicana activist educator. I still don't know how involved in the Chicana movement in schools I want to be, but it is an amazing opportunity to have. When I went to CSU, I did not join the Mexican American Student Club because I was scared I would not fit in. But it is time to confront these fears and time to confront my interstices. It is time to identify myself by helping students identify themselves. It is time to realize what all this history means for my future. It is time to be Allison Cuellar. As I take a look at who Allison Cuellar is, I'm reminded of one essential fact. I'm not Hispanic, I'm not Latina, I'm not Anglo, I'm all of the above. So what importance does this have? When I come into the classroom, I'm bringing a specific thing, a specific person, a collection of interstices. A person who plays piano, a person who paints, a person who likes literature. This is the kind of history I'm bringing into the classroom, and also all of the history I have just experienced and told you about. As a person who is half Latina, half Caucasian, but all of me, there's one thing I can say. I'm excited for the opportunities I have to work in the classroom, being the person that I am.